Dr. Hacker, it doesn't appear as though you really paint a very pretty picture of white people in general insofar as you see white-black race relations. Can you expound on that, sir?
Well, interestingly, you use the phrase race relations. I don't think there are many relations between black and white people. What I would say very simply is that those of us who are born with this pigmentation have certain privileges, things we can take for granted, we have the safety, the security, so we don't want to lose this. Now, this also means that, and here's the unpleasant part, that so much of our safety, security, status comes from putting down black people, saying we're not like them. We're Europeans. We're more highly evolved. We've got talents they don't have. And that's where you get, the flip side of this, which really is the ugly side of racism.
Mm-hmm. Well, how much does sex and sexuality really have to do with race relations, particularly between white men and black men?
Well, if you take white men and black men, let's take it two ways.
Okay.
If a white man is walking down the street and he sees a couple, a very attractive black man, really masculine, and with him a very attractive white woman, very white, we'll make her blonde, He looks at that woman and he wonders, this is the white man, what does she see in him? What do they do together? And it really drives us, up the wall, because she's a woman who could choose, a white guy, but she chooses a black guy. And that really bothers us. And as a result, what we want to do is some way take that black man away, because we begin to say, hey, is she having a better time with him, in various ways than she can with me? And so he's competition for us. And you know how people react to competition.
They attack black people after they've been murdered, when they did absolutely nothing wrong. You're pushing us to the limit. And what do I mean by that? You're asking us to talk about history, the history of the South. This is in Georgia. What happened in Georgia? There were savages in Georgia. It was the ancestors of the white right-wingers. They were absolute savages. They murdered people, they lynched people, they raped people, they enslaved people. They took babies from their mothers and sold them as property. You want to talk about savages? Your ancestors were the biggest savages the world has ever seen. So don't you dare call a black man a savage after you murdered him. Don't you dare do that. I'm so sick of African Americans being called violent when the world's worst violence was done to them, not by them, to them, not by them.
A white person would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society. Please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
If you're a Christian white parent who loves the Lord and loves your children, that you need to have the talk. The talk that we're referencing is the talk that takes your children according to their maturity at the proper time, the appropriate time, and says there are certain parts of town that you cannot go. And there are certain people that you cannot be around.
Yep.
If there's someone who is black in our church and they've been in our church and we know them and they love the Lord Jesus Christ, great. We're not talking about that person, right. But we're talking about when you go into a crowd of people. If you go into a crowd of strangers and they're white strangers, there's some danger. If they're black strangers, there is 30 times more danger.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
There is something so powerful about a white man stepping up, and he goes ahead and calls out the lie his own community was raised upon. And we are seeing that this guy is debunking the whole system, which has been having this kind of a trick towards Black Americans. Because if you narrow down, you come to realize that the biggest trick in American history was not just the slavery thing. the slavery was also accompanied by branding. When these people broke free from slavery, we saw that Black Americans were started being labeled because they saw that the only way of keeping them apart and away from whites was to label these people as savage, to say that these people are violent, they're so primitive and dangerous. And you'll wonder, if these people are savage, violent, primitive, and dangerous, why would you even trust them with the machineries? Why would you trust them with babysitting if those were the things that you're saying? And you'll come to realize that that kind of labeling did not just come from nowhere. It was manufactured. And that manufacturing made it so useful because it redirected attention from anyone who was actually committing the organized state-backed violence for centuries.
The black community has long suffered under the weight of systemic racism and discrimination. As white people, it is our responsibility to use our privilege to support and uplift the black community. Here are a few ways that we can be better allies. Listen and learn. We need to listen to black voices and experiences without interrupting or dismissing them. We should educate ourselves on the history of systemic racism and the ways that it continues to impact the black community today. We should seek out resources, books, and documentaries that help us understand the issues. Next, speak up. We should use our privilege to speak up against racism and discrimination. We should challenge racist comments and behaviors, even if it's uncomfortable. Silence that which perpetuates racism. We should support black-owned businesses in our communities. We should advocate for policies that support economic justice and equity. Donate to black-led organizations. Financially support black-led organizations that are working to address systemic racism and inequality. It can be done through regular contributions or contributing to certain campaigns and initiatives. We should also use our platforms for good as white people. We have access to platforms and audiences that the black community may not have. We should use our platforms to amplify black voices and perspectives, raise awareness about issues affecting the black community, and promote positive change. Be open to feedback and learning from our mistakes, as we will make mistakes along the way. But it's important to acknowledge them, apologize, and learn from them. We should be open to feedback and willing to change our behavior and perspectives as we continue to learn and grow. Being a better ally to the black community requires a willingness to listen, learn, and take action. It requires us to use our privilege for good, support black-owned businesses and communities, and speak up against racism and discrimination. It's up to all of us to work towards a more just and equitable society. And being a better ally is an important step. If you like the content and benefit from it, give me a follow.
With them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here, and God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you. Listen.
You can't enslave millions of people, erase their entire indigenous nations, then run these kind of forced labor camps, sterilize their community, experiment on children, and also use them as lab rats. And in that claim, you say that you are the moral superior in that country, and that's some sort of a planning, because it takes that kind of a bureaucracy, and that's the policies which these people have been using, so that they can now take power and have it for on their own, and use it to minimize and also make the other races feel so inferior when they try to stand against them. And the word savage was not a projection. And what we are realizing here is that a lot of these people are realizing the mistakes their ancestors did to Black Americans at large. And the whole thing comes to get so uncomfortable because whiteness as a political identity was not just some sort of a natural bond. It was engineered after events like the Bacon's Rebellion. The colonial elites saw something which is so dangerous. They saw that poor Europeans and enslaved Africans were aligning against the ruling class, and that terrified them so much. So what they did, they created a new hierarchy. They gave power to Europeans as some sort of a psychological wage, a badge, and you're not rich because at least where you are white. So there was that kind of a proximity from Europeans to the whiteness. So they started now turning against the blacks, and that move split the solidarity, and it built a permanent underclass. It divided these people, and now they were able to be conquered, and now they were codified into some sort of law. And that's not some sort of a conspiracy. It is something which has been documented. And while that kind of identity was being constructed, these kind of indigenous children were being subjected into some sort of medical abuse in the name of progress. But institutions funded all that thing, they protected all that thing, and it was excused to be used against these humans. And human experimentation was not some sort of a fringe accident. It was justified under some sort of logic that certain lives were expendable and others actually did not matter. And that kind of progress was required, and it led to suffering of others. So when someone from inside that dominant group stands up and says that we have been lying to ourselves, that matters a lot because it breaks this kind of illusion that these people were just resentment into talking, and it forces them to come into accountability. And now this is now the clarity which these people need to understand, because you cannot dismantle prejudice if you refuse to admit how it was built in the first place. And you cannot fix inequality while you cling to myths that you are morally innocent. But you have to start by acknowledging that you did the Black Americans bad, and that is where now you start making up for these Black Americans. But also talking alone without action will not add up to anything, because Black Americans are so tired because of these fake promises which they've been promised ever since. Because up to date, they've never even received their reparations yet, and they were promised to be paid back. But even if you look at all these things, you just let these people live at peace, because that country has done a lot to them, and they have built it to where it is right now. And the rights, the civil rights which these people actually enjoy right now, they fought for. So we should appreciate these people and also pay what's due to them by appreciating all their efforts and not trying to belittle them. But let us know whether this whole thing about a white guy calling out his own is valid down in the comment down below, and also your views and thoughts concerning the same topic that we've discussed today. And if you've not subscribed yet, you can support us by subscribing.